Food is love for us. That's how you show your love. You go to someone's house, you bring a dish. What can I make? That's the first things out of your mouth. What can I make? What can I bring? You never go somewhere empty-handed. You always prepare something.
This is Arts Educators Save the World, where successful artists and their mentors talk about how arts education transformed their lives. Hey, welcome back to Arts Educators Save the World, a podcast where artists and their mentors talk about the impact that arts education has had on their lives. We are coming to you with an extra special episode of Season 2 that we decided to add last minute when this incredible opportunity to interview a chef-testant from the current season of Top Chef that premiered last night for us as we're recording this. An opportunity to interview that chef-testant and his mentor became available to us. So what you are about to hear is our very first episode of Arts Educators Save the World featuring culinary artists, our very first reality television show contestant, and his mentor. I will not give away who his mentor is because I can't wait, Alec and everyone, for you all to hear from them on the show itself. But I did want to tell our listeners that you're going to be hearing 3 different voices in addition to mine during this episode. First is Chef Valentine Howell Jr., who is our artist. The second is Stephanie, who is his mentor. And the third is my guest co-host for the episode, LINDSAY CHRISTIANS, who you will also hear more about. Enjoy this very special Arts Educators Save the World Top Chef edition. As we get officially started, I'm going to need a little bit of audience participation here. I am going to share with our audience 3 ways in which this episode of our podcast is different than other episodes. And so what I'm going to need y'all to do is, Lindsay's making the signs for 3 things. When I say something, you say 1, then you say 2, and then you say 3 things. So 3 ways that this episode of our podcast is different than other episodes. This is our first conversation about the culinary arts.
1.
Nailing it. This is our first conversation where the mentor-mentee relationship are family members.
2.
And this is an episode where I have a guest co-host who is an expert in the art form herself.
3.
Nailed it. I'm going to introduce my guest co-host for the day, LINDSAY CHRISTIANS. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hello.
Lindsay has a double identity. She is both full-time food editor and an arts writer here in town. She writes primarily for the Capital Times. She is the host and producer of The Corner Table, which is a podcast about food and drink here in Madison, as well as a monthly video series called Cooking with the Cap Times featuring local chefs. She is a published author. She has a book that I own in my kitchen called Madison Chefs, Stories of Food, Farms, and People, as well as a cookbook that she co-wrote with one of our fabulous local restaurants in town, the Osteria Papavero Cookbook, which I will admit I do not own, but I love eating at Osteria Papavero, so that counts, I think.
Yes, it does.
I mostly know Lindsay because I am a theater artist and my teenage daughter is also a theater artist. Lindsay serves as a judge in a lot of the Wisconsin high school theater awards circuit. So we get to hang in the very, very cool world of high school musical theater.
Of which I am an alumni.
Yes! Theater kids are everywhere.
Telling you. And we get older, but we never lose it.
That's right. This is a vibe. Lindsay, I'm so glad that you're joining me today. Welcome to Arts Educators Save the World.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun. It combines all the things that I love.
Yes. And I'm going to ask you to introduce our artist, and then we're going to have our artist introduce their mentor for the day.
I love this. I have a nice little bio for Valentine, so hopefully I get it all right here. Valentine Howell Jr. was born and raised in Boston. He began his culinary education at Madison Park Technical Vocational High School and graduated from Newberry College with a Bachelor of Science degree in Hotel, Restaurant, and Hospitality Management. He has worked at many Boston area restaurants, including Loch Ober, a historic institution, so I'm told, Mastro's Restaurants, and the Greek restaurant Krasi, for which he was a James Beard Award nominee in 2023 for Best Chef Northeast. He has worked with culinary icons like Lydia Shire, and he was a featured chef on PBS's A Movable Feast. Valentine is currently hosting pop-ups to promote Black Cat Eatery, which focuses on Caribbean, Afro-Latin, and Latin street foods. Welcome, Valentine.
Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Valentine, tell us who you brought today as your mentor in culinary arts education.
So I brought my mother. She's been a very instrumental part in influencing me in how I cook and what I cook and kind of pushing the boundaries of what I do with my food. So she's definitely been a huge part of that and definitely my number one cheerleader, supporter since day one.
And apparently former high school theater kid, which
And former high school theater kid, for sure.
Super happy to hear as part of this podcast. So tell me, y'all, your memory of the first time you remember working together around food. It doesn't have to be the same memory. In fact, it has been delightful when they are different memories, but what you remember about how you started working together around culinary arts and cooking.
Well, yeah, I'll let you go first.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here, by the way. I've always loved cooking. I come from a very eclectic background of European, Italian. My mother was Polish, Russian. My dad was Italian. So many influences in my cooking, watching my mom, and then carrying it forward home. One of the things that I remember most is when it was just the four of us that when we moved into this house, I made this dish. And every time I made this dish, Valentine always wanted to see how I did it. The salad with the chicken and the balsamic vinegar. We all love that dish. That was our dinner one night. It was a salad, lettuce, and it was chopped chicken breast and balsamic vinegar and olive oil. It was very simple. But every time I made that dish, he always wanted to see how I did it. And another memory that I have, it's right next to that memory. Every Saturday night at 10 o'clock was the Iron Chef. The original Iron Chef with the chairman, with the red pepper. I would be in my room and Valentine and his brother would be in his room. And we'd have the doors open and I'd say, Valentine, it's Morimoto. And he'd be like, Mom, oh my God, look what they're going to cook tonight. We would never watch it together, but we will watch it together, yelling across the hallway about who it was and what they were cooking. But we watched it to the end, and it was every Saturday. I had to be in my room, and he had to be in his room, remember?
Yeah.
I was so disappointed when they got rid of the chairman crunching his pepper. I was so upset when they did that. But that's another story. Those are my two intricate memories that I have of him and I, two that really pop out in my mind.
I mean, the salad that you made, it was very simple, but every time I try to make it, even now to this day, I try to make it, it still just doesn't come out the way she made it. It's just very simple ingredients. One thing I say in the kitchen to a lot of my cooks, and as corny as it may seem, but love is definitely the most important ingredient to put in all your food, because you can definitely taste when there wasn't any love put into the food, where there wasn't any care put into the food or anything like that. So maybe every time I make the salad, I just don't care. And she cares very much when she makes a salad. So that's why it tastes as good as it does. But I remember being young in the kitchen one day when I had my first Scotch bonnet pepper. I remember going into the kitchen and seeing it on the table and grabbing it and, hey, like, what is this? And she tells me, I'm like, oh, great. You know, she's like, it's a spicy pepper. Like, you want to try it? I'm like, yeah, I'll try it. I take a bite and immediate onset,
Fire.
the capsaicin and the Scoville units just all hitting my tongue at the same time. Yeah, I was on fire. It was not pleasant. But a trick she put me onto was the fact that to get rid of the capsaicin on my tongue, I was to like lick her hair. Something about the enzymes and the oils in the hair or whatever dissipate the capsaicin on the tongue, and everything went away. So now it was better. But vividly remember trying my first Scotch bonnet pepper in the kitchen with this woman right here.
And then licking her hair afterwards?
And then licking her hair
And
afterwards.
that I learned, my husband's from Haiti, and I've learned so many tricks about burns and capsaicin, the pepper and everything. It's unbelievable, and they all work. Every one of them work. I know it was odd, and he didn't want to do it, but as soon as he did it, he was cured. So better than milk, better than bread.
1,000 times better than both.
Yep.
That's wild.
Hair licking.
Hair licking.
Who would have thought?
The things you learn on Arts Educators Save the World, everybody. You're not going to get this content.
No, you definitely
you're
won't.
not.
Any other
The more you know.
podcasts about culinary arts. I'm just saying. When did you start cooking together?
Well, I have to tell you, I'll back up a little bit. I was a single mom for a long time, right up until Valentine was 8 years old. It was just me and Valentine, then me and Valentine and my youngest son. So him and I were very connected for a long time because it was just the three of us. He just watched me. And when we would go to my mom's house, same thing. There's a picture. Oh my God, I wish I could show you. There's a picture of him. The very first time he was ever at a stove was when he was about 15 months old. They got a little stool. They took the picture and he's got the wooden spoon in his hand. That's when he started. Food is love for us. That's how you show your love. You go to someone's house, you bring a dish. What can I make? That's the first things out of your mouth. What can I make? What can I bring? You never go empty-handed. You never go somewhere empty-handed. You always prepare something. Here it is.
Oh my God.
I got some glare, but
Is that on your Instagram?
that's my Insta.
So that's like accessible. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's definitely accessible.
I mean, folks who are listening to this, look up Valentine's Instagram, the cutest little chef. Amazing.
Who just transformed into the most handsomest, awesome chef. But anyway, that's just the mother talking. It started very young, from going to Nana's house, being with me. That's how we express our love, is through our cooking. That's how I do. That's what helps me even now. When I know someone loves my cooking, I don't even have to eat the meal. I'm full. I'm full and I'm content. So we've been together in the kitchen since he was a very small boy, like 15 months. Keep on going.
So I had a question that's related to Top Chef and your appearance on Top Chef, Valentine. I've been watching the series for a very long time. There's a challenge oftentimes, and I don't know if it happened this season because we haven't seen the season yet, but there's a challenge oftentimes where the competitors will have to bring on a mentor, someone from their family or from their inner circle to help them complete a challenge. I don't know your history of having watched the show, but I assume you've seen it if you applied to be on it.
Oh no, yeah.
And I wonder if there are people in your life, including your mom, in your inner circle, who you would want to do a challenge like that, and like maybe what you would want the challenge to be.
I mean, it would definitely, I always said if I was ever going to be on the show and that they needed me to bring somebody on the show, my first pick would be my mother, for sure. The way she's been with food and the way she's adopted food, the way she's adopted every single culture that she's touched and that's come across her table, she's fully absorbed it and made it her own. You know, I'm super proud of the fact and how she's made sure that me and my brother both stayed close to our cultures, not just with family, but through food and keeping that going. And, you know, some people just may learn how to cook a couple things here and there, but this woman truly adopted and took in every single thing about the culture through the food. I still hold her in high regard for that, for sure. So she would be the one, definitely, that I would have brought on the show.
Do you know what you'd want to make with her?
I don't know. But I do know that her Haitian food is some of the best Haitian food I know I've ever had. including a lot of my Haitian friends, and they're like, wow, don't tell my mom, but this is better than hers.
I know. I get that a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, don't tell my mom or my grandmother. I definitely look to her when it comes to those ethnic foods that, I didn't really touch much because she was the queen. I would help her out, but she is the queen in the kitchen at her house. She does it all. But I definitely refer to her when it comes to like those Haitian dishes that I want to know more about and know how she puts her spin on it because it's so good.
And you went to a high school where you were able to specialize in culinary arts?
Yeah, so Madison Park Technical Vocational High School here in Boston is the only technical vocational high school in the greater Boston area. So I'm super happy and super proud to be able to have gone there. But I mean, this all started before I was even in high school. Yeah. I was going to the Boys and Girls Club, and they actually
chef
had
club.
Yeah, we had a chef club every Friday.
His dad came and spoke because his father was a chef.
The instructor at the time was going to Madison for culinary arts, and at that time, like I kind of wanted to be a chef. I was really like interested in all that. So I was like, well, Madison's where I'm going. So I did go there, and then I went to Newbury College in Brookline.
How did you know you wanted to be a chef? And how did you know so young you wanted to be a chef?
I think it was, my father wasn't around much, but I knew he was a chef. And, I remember going to visit him at multiple jobs of his and knocking on the back door and waiting for him to come out. This is back when they were still wearing like all white in the kitchen, white shoes, paper toques and stuff like that. So that kind of was the nugget in my brain of like, hey, I kind of want to do this too. This seems cool. But as I got older, that kind of went out the window a bit, especially when I got to high school. And like, I know I'm there for culinary, but like, oh, well, it's all these other things that I can do.
Football and ROTC he was in. He had his spoons in a lot of pots, may I say.
Yeah, but I didn't end up going to the military. I got injured in my senior year of high school, so I didn't end up going to college to play ball. But I was happy that I still had the culinary background to fall back on. I took that and I ran with it. I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that I am where I'm supposed to be.
Did you continue to work together, the two of you, as you went through that sort of formal education journey?
Yeah.
It sounds like you had a lot of folks, to continue the metaphor. There were a lot of cooks in your kitchen, right? Yeah. Of the like Chef Valentine becoming narrative. How did the two of you continue to work together during that journey?
Well, I distinctly remember one situation. I was in high school, I had earned my ServSafe already. So there was, I was learning about sanitation and all these things. My freshman year of college, I remember coming back home after one of my sanitation classes. And in the Caribbean culture, it is totally normal for you to wash your meat, to clean your meat, to clean your chicken, to clean your beef in warm or hot water with vinegar and lemons, limes, salt, and leave it out for an extended period of time before you cook it. And I went back home and I remember she had the meat sitting out on the counter and I knew what she was doing. She was calling. I was like, you cannot do this. You absolutely cannot do this anymore. Like you could get us up. But then I had to think about it. I'm like, well, I've been eating like this my entire life and not once have I gotten sick. Has anything happened to me? So maybe I'm learning the wrong thing in school. Maybe they got it wrong. But I definitely was taking things back to the home kitchen that I was learning in school and taking things from my home kitchen into my schooling and culinary career that, I learned from her, learned watching and things like that.
May I say on the flip side, my knife skills have got much better since I've been side by side with him. And I even learned it through his daughter. She showed me how. I said, how are you holding that knife? And she goes, Dad taught me how to. And it's so much better. And the weight of the knife cuts the carrot so much better. I learn a lot. We learn from each other. We really do.
That's so great. I like to drop little research nerd bombs in these conversations and sort of say like, oh, this thing that is so important to the way people do their daily lives. Like we have words for that in education research and thinking about how much we value cultural knowledge as important contributions to our various formal spaces. The idea that there are ways of working with meat, for example, that are cultural practices that have been around for probably hundreds of years, right? That for whatever reason, institutionalized practices have dismissed as not appropriate. It's so valuable for new generation folks to start to marry those practices together and say, there's stuff we can bring from the way that we do our lives into these formal spaces. And then there's stuff from formal spaces that we can bring in that improve those practices in our everyday lives. I think that's such a lovely example of that happening.
Yes.
My name is Graham Isidore. I have a progressive eye disease called keratoconus. Admitting I'm losing my vision has been hard, but explaining it to other people has been harder. Lately, I've been trying to talk about it. Short-sighted is an attempt to explain what vision loss feels like by exploring how it sounds. By sharing my story, we get into all the things you don't see about hidden disabilities. Short-sighted from CBC's Personally, available now.
A lot of the chefs that I interview will talk about a moment or a time in their lives where they kind of went from, like, I work for this restaurant, I work on the line, I'm good at this, I can tell that I'm good at this. But then that transition to, I am going to have my own concept and it's going to be iterative and it's going to be something where I am coming up with the dishes and being creative. It's a moment of transition and it can take longer sometimes than chefs anticipate that it will. Like, they'll get their own kitchen and then be like, how come I can't think of anything? Like, where did it go? I had all these ideas before. It's different for every chef that I talk to, but I'm curious how that happened for you, how you sort of made that transition from, I can work in other people's kitchens and I can execute their vision, to, I have my own vision and this is how I want to see it realized.
I think that probably happened for me soon after college. Working in other people's kitchens, always working under somebody else, creating other people's foods. I would take my little bit of time sometimes that I had to maybe take that and make their dish my own or recipe my own. And sometimes it would come out better than chef's recipe or chef's idea. Of course, I would keep it to myself because I didn't want to step on any toes or anything like that. But just the creative aspect of cooking. And I always make the point of, that's why I'm not a baker, because a baker is science. And it's exact and it's precise and you have to be on point. Of course, you have creative ability, but when it comes down to the baking, there's no changing this or that or in the recipe. If you want a cake, you have to follow this recipe here. So it's not too dense, it's not too light, it's not too watery, whatever. But with cooking, it's super creative. It's freelance. You can do whatever you want. I loved that aspect of it. I knew that I wanted to be the one doing that. You know, I looked up to every chef that I worked for. Lydia Shire, for example. I stumbled upon some of her old recipes at my house looking for something else and just had to sit there and take it all in. It was like, wow, this is part of the reason why I loved working for her, because I loved seeing the way her mind worked and how she translated that onto paper and how she translated that into her dishes and how we brought those dishes to life. I was like, I want to be that person. I want to be the person that comes up with the ideas and the dishes and stuff like that and have my team bring that to life for me. So this was probably early 2000s. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to just be a line cook. I didn't want to just be that guy on the line all the time, whatever. I wanted to be with the team grinding it out, but I wanted to be the orchestrator. I wanted to be the maestro. Yes.
For listeners who are not culinary arts experts, can you say who Lydia Shire is and why that's a super cool and important thing that you just said?
Lydia Shire is definitely considered still culinary royalty in the industry. Pretty sure she was one of the first females to win a James Beard or be nominated for a James Beard Award. That was huge, especially in a male-dominated industry, which pretty much still is male-dominated. Even there are some amazing women doing some amazing things, and that all deserve their flowers. But she's definitely one of them, and a pioneer in that sense, paving the way for other women to do other great things and follow in her footsteps. But she is Boston culinary royalty.
And you worked for her?
Yeah, so I worked for her here in Boston at Lockover. And then I worked for her when she opened a restaurant down in the Back Bay called Town Stove and Spirit.
The Lockover was actually his first job right out of the gate, right out of college.
Right out of college, yeah. So being able to work in such a well-known space, a well-known kitchen for such a well-known chef, being able to get that side of it, it was so old school in a sense because not a lot had changed in the kitchen. It was still a very old school kitchen. So I loved that experience, getting to make baked Alaskas, which is something that you really didn't see anymore. And I became like the baked Alaska king. Like I could make that with my eyes closed. But being able to be in such a prestigious place and venue and have so many people come through and experience that through her food, through us making it, it was fantastic.
I'm curious, thinking about your experience on Top Chef and going on to cook on television, how that feels different in some real ways and the same in maybe other ways to cooking in a restaurant kitchen, like a typical restaurant kitchen. Also, if it feels like it's an element of performance that you had to learn how to perform the things that you would normally do when no one was watching.
I don't feel like I have really had to do anything different because one of my jobs at Legal Harborside was an open kitchen. I worked in a lot of open kitchens. When you're working in an open kitchen, you're on display. It's part of the theatrics of being in an open kitchen. They love seeing the cooks do their thing. They love seeing the pans flame up. Everybody's watching. They may not be looking, but they're watching. So every little thing that you do, especially when they have like a chef's table at the counter there near the pass and everything. So I felt like I was on the show or on a show for a long time, especially with my last current job being the executive chef of Crossy here in the Back Bay. It's way smaller restaurant, way more intimate. I mean, people could literally look over the chef's pass and see everything that you were doing. So I treated it like we were on display every night. It was a show every single night. And that's part of, the dining experience, curating that dining experience for people coming in, being in that open environment and not seeing your food come from the back of the restaurant through some double doors and into your table. You're literally watching your food being made, being garnished, being checked, and sometimes brought to you by me, depending on where you were at the bar in the past. And I've always been told, like, wow, you have such a great personality to, like, be on TV. Like, you should have your own show. You should do your own, like, YouTube channel. So I kind of ran with that. And I was like, I kind of do have a knack for this. I guess, people really enjoyed me and what I brought to the table, the personality, everything like that. So I just thought it was a natural progression to end up on Top Chef because it's something that was on my bucket list for a very long time. Ever since the inception of the show, I've watched it almost every season. I fell off a couple, but for the most part, I've watched every season of Top Chef and always dreamed of wanting to be on.
A lot of chefs do just want to put their head down and not be in the spotlight. It's a different kind of thing to say, no, I'm comfortable being looked at while I do this very complicated and difficult thing.
Yeah. The immediate satisfaction of being able to see the food go from me to a guest and watch them take that first bite and see the immediate reaction on their face. Like, wow, that was good. Oh my goodness, this is delicious. I mean, I had a lady cry to me one time after a few bites of ossobuco, and she just started crying. She's like, she needs to talk to you. They come over like, okay, did something happen? Did she eat a bone? Did she swallow something? Was something in her food? She's like, no, this reminded me of my grandmother. Like, this reminded me of home. It made me feel good, especially me not being Greek at the time. Well, I'm not Greek, but yeah, sometimes I'm Greek, sometimes I'm not.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, it depends on the day, how I'm feeling. But seeing that reaction to the food through her and knowing that she made that connection made me feel really proud in that moment. Being able to represent the culture and the food and me not being of the culture and having that happen to her, I always say food is the best language you could know. You don't have to speak the same language as me, but we can sit down and we can share a plate of food. I can cook for you, you can cook for me, and we can learn a lot about each other just by eating each other's food. It's an international language.
That is so true.
You had your Chef Gusteau moment.
I did.
Sounds like you were Remy the Rat and Chef Gusteau got transported back to his childhood.
Yeah. I mean, that happened quite a few times, and not just there, but other places I've worked. And it makes me feel really good. I mean, it fills my heart. And I think that's one of the best parts of being a chef, being a cook, Because I'm a cook first and chef second.
Say what the difference is for you. I have some ideas as from an arts perspective of what the difference between a cook and a chef is, but I'm interested in what you think the difference is.
I mean, I see it as every chef is a cook. There are chefs that just walk around in their clean coat and they're not in the trenches. They're not making the connection with their crew, their team, their line cooks, whatever. A cook immerses himself in the food. They're all about the food, the ingredients, making the dishes, and not just about the glory, not just receiving the accolades. That's why there are chefs that, they don't want to be in the spotlight. They're okay with not getting any limelight or anything like that. I don't ever go looking for it. It just comes, which is great. But if it didn't come, I'd be totally okay with that too, because my love and my passion is the food. That's my first and foremost thing. The accolades, the awards, everything like that, that is completely secondary.
I have to be honest. You said almost the exact opposite thing of what I thought you were going to say. And let me tell you why. As a novice, I think about the chef as the adaptive expert and the cook as the person who can follow instructions. I think of myself as someone who can cook, but I do not think of myself as a chef because I do not see myself as somebody like the two of you who, on top of the love, I hear in both of you the creative expression commitments to making food that as somebody who prepares food as a cook, I don't have. And so to me, I was thinking, the chef is sort of the art form part and the cook is sort of the technical part. I heard you say something different, so I'm delighted by that.
Well, I mean, you would be correct as well. I mean, the cook is the technical part. They're the ones with their hands in the flame, their hands getting burnt and things like that. As the chef is sitting there watching all this go down and demanding the food because it's already 10 minutes too late. The table's looking at him or her and they need this out right now. So you would also be correct in your statement.
Interesting.
I find a lot of chefs do not want to be called chefs, and especially right away after they first get promoted, especially if they're younger, they're uncomfortable with that title. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Valentine, but I think it might go back to that kind of military system that you still see in a lot of kitchens. Also, like any relationship that you have between like people who are managers and people who are being managed, you want to be part of a team. I think it's really interesting, like how cooks and chefs sort of want to be referred to and what that says about how they want to relate to the team they're working with. I find that really interesting.
Yeah. The term chef is, for me personally, it's a respect thing, especially if I don't know who you are, never worked with you before or anything like that. I'm referring to you as chef, even if you're a cook and not the chef, out of respect, because we're both here to do this job. We both are respecting the food and what we're doing. So I'm referring to you as chef. I've never demanded to be called chef. I know I've worked for some people that literally, I remember being called in on my day off because this guy got promoted. And the whole meeting was about the fact that he's not wanting to be called by his name anymore. He wants to be called chef. He will refer to me as chef. And I was like, wow, that's what you brought us in here for? For that? I didn't respect that. Chef is something that, out of respect that somebody calls you, you're not demanding that. So if somebody is referring to me as chef, I feel I have the respect of them. So other than that, it's just like, you can call me Val, you can call me Valentine, call me Chef Valentine, but I don't really demand to be called chef ever.
I have been to every restaurant that he's ever worked at. And something that really stuck out in my mind was listening to him talk right now when he worked at Legal Harborside. There were a lot of Haitian-born people that worked there. Any restaurant he's ever worked, they absolutely love him. And they have a term of affection that they call the boss or the chef. It's called patron. Everybody, you could hear it all in the kitchen, patron. And they'd be talking in their language. And fortunately, my son does understand some Haitian Creole. I speak it fluently. So for me to hear that, and then they heard the mother was sitting at the table and they'd come out, we love your son. We love him. We love him. It was past respect. It was love. And it was not in just that restaurant. It's any restaurant he's ever worked.
Mm.
They respect him 100%. But then he gained love in return because that's just the person that he is. And that's what he gives. And I always say, you get what you give.
That's lovely.
Have you gotten to work, Stephanie, with any of these chefs? Like cook alongside them or?
No. My mother actually, God rest her soul, when he was at the Loco, but she went to Jordan Marsh, they were having a fundraiser for the Boston Food Bank. Lydia Shire was there and Wolfgang Pupp was there. My mother went down there to see him, Wolfgang Puck. So she bought a book and she waited around and she saw Lydia Shire. She goes, "Excuse me, would you come here, please?" She hailed Lydia Shire over. I'm like, "Mommy, you didn't do that, did you?" She goes, "I certainly did." No. My mother did, yes. My mother actually conversed with Lydia Shire. But Lydia did come over to our table. She signed the menu for my mother. It's in his scrapbook. Those moments were amazing. All the food that he made and the way that it was brought out. Every time we went somewhere, it was magical. That's the only word I can use. You felt his love in the food and you felt it from the people that just came up to us and said, "Oh my gosh, do you know how much I love this man?" And I'm like, "Yes, I know."
Oh my God. I know that when we talk about mentorship and wanting to sort of achieve something, representation, we often talk about representation and seeing somebody who looks like you doing the thing. And I wonder, Valentine, how you think about representation on a show like Top Chef. You are representing Boston. You're representing Italian-American chefs. You're representing Caribbean-American chefs. Do you think about those things? Do you weigh those things? Or do you just have to kind of forget about them and do the work? Like, where does it sit for you?
In the moment, yeah, I kind of have to forget about that and do the work. But even just coming up in my career, I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day that being a biracial Black man coming up in this industry, which is predominantly led by nothing but white men, I felt that I wouldn't get far. I felt like I would never be seen. I'd never be heard. I'd never be able to get to that point or break through that glass ceiling. Even just bringing it back to being nominated for the James Beard Award, I think all that kind of came full circle for me. It really made me think about being represented and the fact that I was, and the fact that I want to be able to share this moment with other Black and brown kids, especially in my community and other communities, and let them know hey, listen, you can do this. If this is something you want to do, look at me. Here's someone that looks like you, that's been from an environment like you, a neighborhood just like you. You can rise above what you are around, what you've grown up around, and become more and do more. It is attainable. These things are possible. So it does weigh heavily on me, especially now being on Top Chef. Of course, I see the comments and everything on all the posts that have been putting up, Boston's on your back. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah, this is heavy. This is heavy. Not only am I representing the city of Boston, but the state of Massachusetts, the Northeast of the country. It's huge. I'm super proud of myself because it's a lot to want to put yourself out there on a stage like this. It definitely weighed heavily on my mind whether or not I really did or did not want to do it, because there was a lot of times beforehand I wanted to apply. I just didn't feel like I was ready yet, or I didn't feel like it was time or anything like that. But now having this opportunity, I'd like to be able to show the world, and I hope they see, and it translates really well to everyone that watches it.
Why did you decide that now was the time?
Again, I was just having this conversation the other day. I remember having this conversation with myself and my fiance at the beginning of 2022. New year, new me type deal. I was like, this is going to be the year. I just feel it. 2022 is going to be my year. All the things, manifesting positiveness and good things coming to me, this was going to be it. As the year started out, the restaurant I was at was racking up numerous accolades, and, we're becoming one of the best restaurants in, if not the city, the state. I was really honing my craft there. Then I got nominated, and then I made finalists, and I went to Chicago. Maybe a month or so after that, I got the news that I was going to be on Top Chef. I was like, look, I manifested all of this. I spoke it into existence. That was big for me, absolutely huge for me, and I still carry that with me. I'm so happy because I was in a bit of a funk before all that, until I had a pick myself back up and I'm like, no, man, this is it. You're meant to do great things and this is going to happen. And it has, and it continues to. So I'm super proud of myself and everything that I've done and continue to do.
And there's something about mentorship through the air in that way that I like. It's not a direct, like, I'm going to teach you X, but it is like, you've come before me and you've prepared the way for me to be able to then do that work. And as you said, you know, I think there probably are a lot of Black and brown teenagers who watch Top Chef who may not ever meet you, but who see your role as making things possible for them.
Of course. I'd like to be a beacon of light for those kids.
Were there other people on the show that you were able to learn from?
I love the fact that how inclusive this season was. I mean, they've been, but I feel like this season in particular, the cast of chefs that were there were absolutely incredible. Some of the most beautiful people that I've had the chance to meet. And now I'm honored the fact that, you know, I can call them friends and family and know that I have a bunch of people around the entire United States that, you know, I could go visit at the drop of a dime and just go hang out and share conversations about food and experience and things like that. It was such a beautiful moment for me because it had been a while since I had been surrounded by that type of energy and like-minded people. It was just fantastic. It filled me up.
Without giving anything away, can you think of a time during the show where you were engaged in a mentorship relationship, whether that was with a peer or with a person that you were working with? Is that something that happens through the course of being on the show?
Off camera, there are conversations that we have time to talk with each other, hang out and stuff like that. Every conversation that I had with every single person there gave me a different perspective on things. Everybody came from a different background culturally through their food and everything like that. So every single person I had a different experience with, but every single person also instilled something in me that made me want to go harder, to cook better food, to cook different food. I'm super thankful for that. Had I not got that experience, not that I wouldn't wanted to do more, but like it really turned the fire up in me to want to be a better chef, even to be a better human being, a member of society. Like, what else can I give back? And I'm all about giving back because I know I didn't get a lot of that coming up in the industry because there's always just do what I say, not as I do, just do this. For me to be able to give back to anybody that I work with, knowledge, technique, there's always somebody that is hitting me up like, hey, Val, I just want to thank you for my time that I worked with you. Like, I'll never forget it because you taught me X. You taught me how to make a really perfect poached egg. Like, just something simple. Like, if I can impart just a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of myself or what I have to offer onto somebody else, you know, that's a win for me. The fact that I could meet all these people on this season and be able to bring some of those things back that I've learned and talked about into my own life and into my future career is fantastic.
I have a question for your mom. When you found out that Val was going to be on the show, was there any advice that you gave him? Was there anything that you wanted to encourage him to do or say or be on the show?
No. This man works a room. He walks into our family parties and he's the star of the show. He is. He's who we gravitate to. Everybody in my family, the cousins, we all love each other. But when he walks in, it's a whole different vibe. That's the only way I can say it.
I mean, I think it also has to do with my physical stature. I am also 6'4", 300 pounds. You can't see the beard because it mixes in with the shirt, but I guess I've been told I'm a presence, so.
He is.
Your mother seems like she holds her own, to be clear.
Oh, she does too. I'm pretty sure this is where I got it from. Yes, the size I got from my dad, but the personality and all that stuff, this was definitely her.
That seems clear.
But he's his own. I'm telling you, he's his own. There wasn't anything I could tell him more than do your best. Just represent yourself and who you are. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
He knows who he is. And pretty soon, the entire country is going to know who he is.
That's right.
Very true.
Part of my background is in cognitive science, and I spent a lot of time studying expertise and how people develop expertise. And I remember this was many years ago. There was a challenge on the show where people are blindfolded and then they have to prepare a dish in groups, right? So one person spends 10 minutes on a dish. The rest of their team is blindfolded. The next person takes the blindfold off. They get 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Then they get 10 minutes. They get 10 minutes. I remember watching that challenge and thinking, this is the single highest demonstration of expertise that I can imagine, which is essentially, how do you do collective problem solving with zero verbal communication and make something? And of course, that's not a task that happens in the real world, right? You would never prepare a dish like that in a restaurant. So I guess my question is there mentorship around the gamesmanship aspect of the show or a task like that? Is it just that you're so good that the game part of it you just kind of pick up? Or is there like a learning curve to the gamesmanship aspect of the sort of culinary arts piece?
As a chef and a person who's never competed in any other like kind of culinary competition or anything like that, there was like sort of a learning curve to certain things. Just being in the industry, working in the kitchens constantly. I mean, I've worked with people where we've gotten to the point where we didn't have to say anything to each other. Like we read each other's minds. We knew what the other person wanted without having to say a word. Maybe it could just be a look, or I could literally leave some ingredients out on the thing. And it was like, I knew exactly what Val wanted, or I knew exactly what my guy wanted, or whatever have you. I've worked in kitchens like that. So there was also that. So if you kind of forget about maybe the game and just focused on what you were doing, task at hand or anything like that, that's all you really needed. Because I'm pretty sure all of us had worked in kitchens like that or with people like that where we didn't have to say a word to each other. We just knew. It's just a mind thing. Telepathically, just look and like, yeah, okay, yeah, I got it. Yep, I know exactly what you want.
I mean, from the outside, I have to tell you, that just looks like magic.
Yeah, I'm sure it does for a lot of people on the outside.
Without giving any spoilers, would you do it again?
You know what? I 1,000% would do it again, for sure.
A lot of people do.
It was definitely one of the most challenging yet fulfilling experience of my culinary career thus far.
That's incredible. I have to say, it looks difficult, like nothing I can really explain, because you're doing something at such a high level, but there's so much waiting and then moving very fast, and then waiting and then moving very fast. Even the pace seems very punishing. Not punishing, challenging.
Yeah, I mean, it can be. It definitely can be, for sure.
I can't wait to see you on this season. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait for the world to see, counting down the days.
No kidding.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's like, oh, you're going to watch? You're going to watch? I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to watch. If I was going to the premiere, I have no choice. But it's like hearing yourself on a voicemail. It's like a lot of people are like, oh, I can't stand my voice. Or like, it just sounds so weird. Like, this is quantified times 1,000 now. Not only am I hearing myself, I am seeing myself run around with cameras in my face. So that's a whole new experience.
This is what I look like when I'm grocery shopping very fast.
Yeah, this is what I look like with only 30 minutes to shop.
Yeah.
Hey, look at me. Look at me go. Watch me go.
Stephanie, are you going to watch?
Yes. Oh my God. I'm ready. I am so ready. I cannot wait. I was at a bridal shower this weekend for my nephew, and my poor sister was sitting next to me, and she's telling somebody this story of wrapping a gift. And the woman's like, oh, so your son's on the Top Chef? Oh my God. And she like totally blew my sister up. That was the big subject of the entire, everybody was, oh my God, I can't wait to see the show. Is he coming? It's
like, we're actually here to celebrate their engagement and wedding, but yeah, that's great. But
I can only imagine what the wedding's going to be, because the wedding's in May and he'll be there. So it's going to be like, congratulations, Stephen Valentine.
Tell us more.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
What's your favorite thing to cook together?
Oof. Pasta fajoule.
Oh, yes. Pasta fazool.
That's definitely a staple. And I haven't had it in a while.
I know. It used to be every Monday night for years.
Yeah. That's a dish that really brings me home. It's comforting. It's something that, brings up a lot of positive memories. So I think that right there.
Yeah.
That's an Italian dish, obviously,
Yeah.
but
It is.
also
It
is a dish that probably can incorporate other cultural ways of being. Something that I'm picking up on is both of you embracing this idea that see yourselves as coming from a collection of traditions, and that gets taken up in the food that you make together and also
Absolutely.
separately.
That
Yes.
is 1,000% true.
Yeah.
Any questions for each other? Sometimes our mentors and mentees like to ask one another questions about their history of their cooking practice or working together.
Is there anything that you'd like to learn from me still?
I would really like to get my knife skills really good so I can go, how no, seriously.
The dream.
I know, I'm 64 years old, but I think I could do that. You know how I go, he can do it. I can't do it.
I can't.
I would really like to improve my knife skills. I really would. That's what I would like you to teach me.
Okay, I got you.
What would you like to learn from me?
We need to make sauce pois.
Oh, for real.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
What's that?
So I've embraced Haitian cooking. My husband and I will be married 28 years next Saturday. And I learned something from prior relationships that you really need to embrace the other person's culture as well as them embrace yours. And my husband and I, we're a very good example of that. And sauce pois is a Haitian dish, almost like habichuela in the Spanish, the Latin. What it is, it's a sauce made out of beans. And you have to keep some of the beans in the sauce, but you have to know how long to cook the beans, separate the water from the beans, put them in the blender, and push out the thickened part of the bean.
Like the skin of the bean.
Yeah, and you keep the skin and the other stuff in the sieve, and then you let the other stuff drip out, and then you add water, seasonings, a little hot pepper, Scotch bonnet pepper.
Scotch bonnet pepper.
Get your hair looking ready.
Get your hair looking ready.
Get my hair ready. And then you serve it over white rice. You can make it out of green pea, red kidney beans, white kidney beans, black beans. You can make all different colors, the different types of beans. It's really delicious. It's very good for you too.
Every time I've tried to make it myself, it's good, but it's not like hers. So, again, there's certain little nuances that she does that I still need to learn and pick up on so I can try to take this with me into the future. Because, we all will have a time. She'll have her time. I'll have my time. But when it's her time, I want to be able to take that with me and pass it on. And to teach somebody else, to teach my daughter, teach my fiance, I need to carry that on. So I still want to learn how to make the sauce pois.
And may I touch on what he just said? That's something that I regret. And it's my grandmother on my dad's side. She made the best homemade gnocchi you ever had in your life. Absolutely delicious, from potatoes and flour and eggs on the big table. And oh my God, I can just still taste them right now. She got Alzheimer's and I never learned the recipe. She forgot everything. She forgot she even spoke Italian. So these are the things. Let's do this. Let's really make an appointment and do that. Because these things that he wants to learn, tomorrow's not promised. We all know that. So we need to pass these things along so that they stay and that they get passed on further and that future generations can enjoy what we enjoyed.
That's such a lovely way to end our conversation. I can't imagine a different ending to this time together. I really appreciate having a chance to learn from all three of you about this particular way of making and doing art and how important family is in this art form, maybe more than many of the other art forms that I talk to people about, because of the culture and the history and the love that's embedded in the practice.
Definitely. Family is definitely most important.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Alec, if you haven't met me before, and I was not a part of this interview, of course. I'm the producer on the show, and usually I'm involved, but I wasn't. I was invited. I just couldn't make it, I promise. Or maybe I wasn't invited. I don't read my emails. This did make me think one thing when I was listening to it, which is I'm fascinated by carbon-based life forms and the fact that we have so much in common and yet are so different. For example, I don't think about food at all.
That's why you weren't invited to this podcast.
See, maybe I wasn't invited. It is another language to me, and one that if it's spoken in front of me, I'll try to listen, trying to beat the metaphor to death here. But otherwise, I don't care to learn it. I enjoy good food, but I don't care at all. Food does not mean love to me, which, it certainly does to, obviously, in many families. That isn't sort of the language that we used in my house. And so what I love about an interview like this is similar to the interview we had with our ceramicists, where it's like, I don't speak this language and I love hearing its grammar. I love hearing its idiom. How do you talk about food when you care? We have on this show, if you're listening now as someone that's coming to us as a Top Chef fan, we have a lot of actors and a lot of directors and writers, and that's language that I speak, and I love hearing the nitty-gritty of how that stuff is made. But I also love hearing how stuff is made when I don't understand what they're saying at all. And I understood most of what he was saying, but still, my goodness, a whole other world.
And the way that they talked with reverence about some of the luminaries in their own field is also the same kind of language that we have talked about the luminaries in the field of TV sitcom writing or Broadway musicals or any of the other art forms that you and I are more familiar with.
Yeah.
And so I loved, after we recorded, I went and Googled Lydia Shire, which is one of the Boston restaurateurs that they talked about. And lo and behold, one of the nation's finest chefs with a storied career, an incredible powerhouse of a female artist, entrepreneur, business person that was unfamiliar to me until just now. So I agree with you. I also, though, love food, so I could listen to them talk about how they make Haitian bean stew forever.
I mean, the other thing, of course, is you watch Top Chef.
I do.
I watch no reality shows. So until we decide that a baseball player can be an artist, I'm not sure. Oh, you're nodding. Good. So they can be. I hope they can be.
We can talk about it. I will just say one other thing since you mentioned the show. The show has premiered since we have been recording, and I got to watch Valentine on the first episode, and it was incredibly special for me as somebody who has been a fan of the show from a distance and now feeling like not only did I have a personal stake in the outcome, but that I had a friend who I was watching him go through this incredibly stressful journey through the eyes of. So it was really made watching the show even more special for me.
And as the music comes in, we like to end with a little game here. We call it 3 Things. Eric, I'm going to ask you something, and I'm going to need 3 answers from you. I guess the question is, as we end this season yet again, and as we talk about food being love, Erica, what is love?
Oh, wow. You went deep. Family.
1.
Singing so loudly to myself in the car that I can't hear anything else.
2.
A really incredible nap on the chair in my bedroom with my 2 cats at my feet.
Is that the 3rd thing, or is that a preview of what I'm about to do? 3 things.
Woo woo! Hopefully, some of you are new to our show as a result of your love for Top Chef. And if so, we would love to leave you with, Alec, what are 3 ways that listeners can stay involved with our show?
Number 1, you certainly can rate and review the show on wherever you're listening. It really does help other people to hear it, and we would much appreciate it.
1.
Check out our website, artseducatorspodcast.com. From there, you can check out the old episodes. You can also see where else you could listen to the show.
2.
And 3, there's definitely some social media way of interacting with the show, and it is at Arts Educators on X and at Erica. Go for it. What is it on Instagram?
Arts Educators Podcast.
At Arts Educators Podcast on Instagram. Also, you can write to us, and please do, with your thoughts about the show, any mentor-protege relationships you might like us to follow up on, and your favorite meal at the holidays. That's contact@artseducatorspodcast.com.
3 things. Exciting stuff to come in season 3. Until then, onward together.
Arts Educators Save the World is hosted by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and produced and co-hosted by me, Alec Lev. Our executive producer is Doug Matica, and our audio producer is Justin Asher. We are also executive produced by the fantastic group at Story Pirate Studios, Lee Overtree, Benjamin Salka, and Amy Fiore. Original music is by Dan Lipton, and our artwork is by Lyra Evans. Check out our website, designed by Cole Locasio, at www.artseducatorspodcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter @ArtsEducators. Yes, somehow that wasn't taken yet. And on Instagram @ArtsEducatorsPodcast. Write to us with your questions and comments at contact@artseducatorspodcast.com. And wherever you're listening, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps the show. We are proud to be sponsored in part by the Wallace Foundation, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the Gibb Faculty Fellowship. Arts Educators Save the World was created by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and Alec Lev.